Resident Evil is a survival horror game by Capcom and is the first game in the Resident Evil series. It was originally released in 1996 for the PlayStation and has been subsequently ported to the Sega Saturn and PC, then re-released twice on the PlayStation in the form of a director's cut. A Game Boy Color version of Resident Evil was planned for the release in 1999 but was later cancelled by Capcom, citing that the port was of poor quality. Capcom later released a new game in the series for the platform titled Resident Evil Gaiden. In 2002, a remake of the game was released for Nintendo GameCube featuring new graphics and voice acting, among other significant changes. A Nintendo DS port of the original, with added modes and the subtitle Deadly Silence, was released in early 2006. Resident Evil gives players a choice between two playable characters. S.T.A.R.S Alpha Team members Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine. The differences between both characters are more than superficial, with differences in abilities, items, and even supporting characters, resulting in a slightly different scenario for both protagonists. Later Resident Evil titles would often follow this tradition of including a male and female lead, although in some, they are both available at the start of the game. Notably, Resident Evil 0 has players control both protagonists simultaneously. Chris Redfield, one of the protagonists of the game. Chris is much stronger and faster than Jill, making him more resistant to enemy attacks. But to compensate for this strength, his scenario is made more problematic, especially for the inexperienced. He faces more enemies compared to Jill, and the enemies in his scenario also have more health than Jill. He can only carry 6 items and starts with only a knife. To make things worse, he needs small keys to unlock places where Jill can simply use her lockpick. Chris's supporting character is Rebecca. She will not rescue him as much as Barry would for Jill, but she can heal all of Chris's wounds at certain stages of the game depending upon Chris's actions. Chris also finds the flamethrower, a weapon exclusive to his scenario. Jill Valentine, one of the protagonists of the game. Jill's scenario is the simpler of the two, as she has higher carrying capacity and has a lockpick that serves as a substitute for the small keys in Chris's scenario. Jill's supporting character is Barry. He wields a powerful .357 Magnum Colt Python and is more helpful than Rebecca, as he eliminates the need for the broken shotgun and assists in fighting several of the bosses. Jill also gets to use a grenade launcher, a weapon exclusive to her scenario and capable of firing several times rounds. However, these advantages are offset by the fact that she is more vulnerable to enemy attacks than Chris due to her lower health, and is less likely to escape from them since she is slower. The character who is not chosen becomes a prisoner of Wesker until the end of the game. To unlock the passage leading to the cell, 3 MO discs must be collected by the player and then eliminated into the terminals located throughout the lab. The cell's door can only be unlocked by activating the self-destruct mechanism or by using Wesker's master key. Deciding whether to free them or not affects several of the ending cut scenes. Albert Wesker, leader of the Alpha Team and S.T.A.R.S, Wesker was also an undercover spy of Umbrella and plans to dispose of his former teammates and gather data on the bioorganic weapons. Barry Burton, a S.T.A.R.S member who assists Jill in her search. Barry is blackmailed into murder and the destruction of evidence by the traitorous S.T.A.R.S leader Albert Wesker. During Chris's storyline, Barry goes missing after the opening cutscene, with Wesker presuming him to be dead, but it's never proven. Barry is not seen or mentioned again after that. Brad Vickers, Alpha Team's pilot. Brad was a coward who left his teammates behind after Frost's death. He then later assisted the player by giving them a rocket launcher to kill the tyrant. Joseph Frost, another member of the Alpha Team. Joseph was attacked and eaten alive by a pack of Cerberus just outside of the mansion. Rebecca Chambers, a S.T.A.R.S member who assists Chris in his search. Rebecca is one of the survivors of the incident, whose disappearance prompted the Alpha Team's investigation, and is currently the only one alive from the Bravo team. She is playable in Chris's scenario twice at most. Rebecca is not seen or mentioned in Jill's storyline. Richard Aiken, a Bravo team member who is bitten and injected with venom by the Yawn. Aiken dies before the serum has a chance to save him. In the GameCube remake, Richard lives if you give him the serum in time, but is then killed either by the Yawn or by Neptune, depending upon your character choice. When he dies in either of these scenes, you acquire the assault shotgun from him, a more powerful shotgun with a higher rate of fire and capacity. Forrest Spire, another member of the Bravo team. Forrest was killed by a flock of crows on the balcony of the mansion. In Resident Evil Director's Cut and in the remake, he is revived as a zombie. Kenneth J. Sullivan, another Bravo team member. Kenneth was eaten and decapitated by a zombie in the hallway after straying off from the dining room moments before the Alpha team found him. In the remake, the player finds a film on his dead body which shows his last moments. Enrico Marini, captain of the Bravo team. Enrico discovers that a member of the Alpha team is a traitor, but is assassinated before confirming it to the player. The game begins on the night of 24th of July, 1998. The S.T.A.R.S Bravo team, sent out the night before to investigate the killings, has dropped out of radio contact, and the Alpha team is dispatched by the Arklay Mountains in their helicopter to find them. While searching the area, S.T.A.R.S member Joseph Frost finds a severed hand still clutching a handgun. He is soon attacked by mutated dogs and is subsequently killed. The other S.T.A.R.S members flee back to their helicopter, but the pilot Brad Vickers has already taken off and abandoned them. Spotting a large building in the distance, the four S.T.A.R.S members run toward it in hopes of finding shelter from the dogs. Depending upon character choice, Chris Redfield or Barry Burton will fail to reach the mansion door, and the team is now down 3 members: the player, Captain Albert Wesker, and another character. While talking in the entrance hall, a gunshot is heard from the building's west wing. Captain Wesker orders the players to investigate. The player finds a pool of blood next to the fireplace of a dining hall, and soon discovers the decapitated remains of the S.T.A.R.S Bravo team member Kenneth J. Sullivan being eaten by an infected man. When they return to the entrance hall, no one is there. During the exploration of the mansion, the player will find the 2 other Bravo team members on the terrace. They may find the body of Forrest Spire, having been injured by the zombies and subsequently attacked by crows. On the east wing, the player will also find Richard Aiken, who, if alive, can recover medicine to treat a large bite mark. He dies regardless, but will offer his radio if treated. Elsewhere in the mansion, the player finds files that describes the disaster, how the staff slowly went insane and killed one another, and how the man in sunglasses stopped outgoing phones to cut them off from the rest of the world. Eventually, the surviving scientists and researchers began killing themselves upon showing symptoms of infection. During the initial exploration of the mansion, Jill will run into Barry in predetermined locations based on the player's path. He may help her escape a ceiling trap, give her ammunition for the bazooka, show her forced body, or talk to her in a study room. For Chris, he will find Bravo team survivor Rebecca Chambers either attending to Richard's wounds or in the west storeroom. If Chris finds her with Richard, she will accompany him to the storeroom after his death, if Chris arrived in time for the medicine. If he takes too long and he is already dead, she will disappear. Chris will later meet her in the bar, where she plays the Moonlight Sonata to trigger the opening of a secret room. Following the defeat of the Yawn enemy, the player moves to a courtyard populated by Cerberus-infected dogs. They will quickly move to the dormitory, where the giant plants vines can attack the player and where bees have taken over the gallery. Underground is a flooded room that houses a water tank that is smashed, allowing several sharks to swim freely in shallow water. The compound V-Jolt may be used to weaken the giant plant, Plant 42. After killing the plant, the player will run to Captain Wesker, who tells them to investigate the mansion. In Chris's story, he says Jill has disappeared, while in Jill's story, he cautions her about Barry's unusual behavior. Returning to the mansion, it is found to be populated by more powerful bioweapons called hunters. The protagonist jump down a hole leading to George Trevor's hidden tomb, which itself leads to a passage in the kitchen. In Jill's story, Barry drops a rope and will either wait for him to return or continue down the passage. In Chris's story, Rebecca will be confronted by a hunter somewhere in the mansion, which will kill her if it takes too long to find her. After leaving the mansion behind, the protagonist climbed down a hole behind the waterfall in the courtyard, leading to the tunnels abandoned by Umbrella in the 1960s. In Jill's story, she will find Barry already there, and he will ask her to go with her. If she agrees, he will then ask her to go first. If she refuses, he will then ask if she will stay while he goes alone. She can refuse or accept to go. Deep in the tunnels is an injured Enrico Marini, Bravo's team's captain. He believes stars were set up to be wiped out in the mansion, but isn't too exactly sure who is, though he believes Jill is not the traitor. Whenever he confronts Jill and Barry or Chris, an unseen individual, will shoot him and take off before he can reveal any more information. If Jill refused Barry's request to accompany her and her request to stay at the beginning of the tunnels, he will be killed by a hunter. After navigating the courtyard, the protagonist makes it to a water fountain that hides the secret entrance to the Arclay lab. While exploring it, they will discover film directly linking the Captain Wesker with the laboratory. As a senior researcher in their bioweapons development team and security chief, if gaining access to the cells for imprisoning human test subjects, they will find one of the S.T.A.R.S Alpha Team members who Captain Wesker took hostage earlier in the game. The protagonists will later head down an elevator into level B4 towards the culture tank room. Jill will be confronted by Captain Wesker, who will reveal he received orders from the Umbrella to use S.T.A.R.S to reach the lab and return crucial bioweapons research data to them. Barry is revealed as his subordinate, forced to do so on the threat of his wife and daughter's death. If Jill waited for the rope back in the mansion, Barry would turn on Wesker and shoot him. If Jill did not wait, and Barry survived the underground tunnels, he will take off for the heliport and have been killed along the way. In Chris's story, he meets Wesker outside the elevator. If Rebecca is alive, she will be shot and, although wearing a bulletproof vest, be knocked out. In any case, the protagonist will enter the culture room to witness the tyrant, which will wake up and attack the player. If Wesker is there, he will be impaled and killed. If Barry is there, he will be slapped and knocked out. Following the tyrant's defeat, the self-destruct system will be triggered if the partner's character is alive, and the protagonist will get a radio call from Brad alerting them to respond to him. If the protagonist remembers to use the Wesker's mask key, they will save their incarnate comrade and take off to the helipad. Arriving at the helipad, the protagonist fires a rocket into the air to alert Brad to pick them up. If the self-destruct system is triggered, the tyrant will arrive on the helipad and confront the protagonist a final time, and may kill the partner character. Brad will drop a rocket launcher during the fight, and the tyrant will explode. If the fight does not take place, the game will simply end with the surviving characters on the helicopter. The game gives the player control of S.T.A.R.S, Alpha Team members Chris Redfield or Jill Valentine, as they search a way out and attempt to locate the S.T.A.R.S Bravo team. The characters play out similar scenarios, but they have different skills. Chris is assisted by Bravo team medic Rebecca Chambers, while Jill gets help from fellow Alpha Team member Barry Burton. Jill's quest is easier because she has a higher item carrying capacity, can pick simple locks with her lockpick, and has a comparatively stronger teammate. She also has access to a grenade launcher and can complete certain puzzles by herself, while Chris needs Rebecca's help in certain areas. Chris's limitations make his quest arguably more difficult, but he has more stamina than Jill, therefore being able to sustain greater damage and run faster. Resident Evil was developed from 1994 to 1996 by Team Horror, a Capcom development team largely consisting of newcomers within Planning Room 2, a studio that would later become Capcom Production Studio 4. The game was produced by Tokuro Fujiwara, director of 1989's Street Home, who desired a similar horror game that would achieve what Famicom could not. The game was directed by Shinichi Mikami, who had previously directed Capcom's Disney's tie-in games, especially Goof Troop for the Super Nintendo Famicom. Beneath him was a team of planners who made a variety of decisions on how the general design of the game was to fit, from proposing a map and items designed to developing the game's backstory. The team was consisted of Hideki Kamiya, Hiroki Kato, Kazunori Kadui, Kojudi Oda, Satoshi Murata, Kinichi Iwa, Yasukui Saga, Kazuhiro Aoyama, Takashi Nakaya, and Masaki Yamada. Many of these planners joined the team halfway into development, including Saga and Kamiya, due to developing their exceeding initial expectations. The PlayStation game was a bestseller in North America. The game received positive reviews from critics. GameSpot praised the game, describing it as one of those rare games that's almost as entertaining to watch as it is to play. On the other hand, Computer Gaming World gave it a more mixed review for the PC version, explaining that they tried to hate it with its graphic violence, rampant sexism, poor acting, and use of every horror cliché. However, it's fun. In total, according to Capcom's investor relations website, the original Resident Evil has sold 2,750,000 units. The Director's Cut version, including the DualShock edition, sold an additional 2.33 million copies. After this, we'll head right into Resident Evil 1.5, a cancellation sequel to Resident Evil in 1997. I hope you enjoyed this. Please, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to see more. And goodbye.